thank you for taking time to be here on what used to be, the signing day of when everybody signed. And it's obviously changed with the timing of how things are throughout the scope of college football and recruiting. So I'm going to hit on a number of things, in now almost calendar flip to 2 months on being on the job on campus. And you look at, I'll just start with the signing, the group of 40 young men that we've signed in really in short order. I've always since things have changed in recruiting with transfers and portal and high school recruiting, you look at what is the right number. And I think anyone that now has studied what roster management looks like, have studied the recruiting trends, I think those numbers are going to remain consistent and as we go forward with 40 and 40 plus. The last two cycles that I was a part of before this one was we signed 50, and then before that 55. And so I think the ability to adapt, the ability to roster manage, those are so vitally important to the health of a program. And then I think you look at in total scope of still wanting the structure of a high school recruiting program. That's what we're going to be, continuing to build those relationships, because I think that's so important on the health of a roster, on being able to recruit high school coaches and their families, the prospects, the student athletes, and then looking at being able to identify talent that you can win in the Big Ten Conference with, and then get them in your program and develop them. And then by year 2 in the program, then some of them will play as freshmen, but then year 2 and year 3 really they take off in the developmental phase of who they are. So 40 overall for us, 11 of those high school signees. 35 of the 40 already started with us mid-year, which was great for them and for us. They've been able to go now through, this is starting week 3 for them for winter conditioning program. And then you look at the phase of what that goes, we'll go another 3 weeks there of our our winter conditioning, and then we've transitioned into something we call a Winning Edge program. And this is something that I learned from Gary Pinkel, who learned it from Don James at Washington, and Gary did it at Toledo and then University of Missouri. And I think it's a big step for our program in the development of speed and quickness and change of direction, and then the physical and mental toughness that it takes to play each position, on what that looks like. So that'll be here the next 2 to 3 weeks on our next phase of our program. And then in 27 days we're lined up and we're starting spring practice number 1, which is we need everybody this wants more time, and we're searching for it. We're using every single minute that we have in recruiting, program development, and then getting ready for spring practice. Back to the signing class, on the number of guys, we had 19 states reflective in the places we recruited, plus 2 student athletes from Canada. We'll go back to our footprint. One of the great things about this university is, you draw a 6-hour radius around West Lafayette, you can be in a lot of places. And that was one of the many things that was so appealing about this job, that you can be in a lot of living rooms really quickly that play great football. And then now for me, an opportunity to be in those areas in the couple of weeks that we had on the road recruiting in January, and be around the great high school coaches. They're tremendous coaches in the area, in that radius, and great high school players. And you look at, the word elite is thrown around probably way too many times, but if you look at what we feel like prospects in that area, you can build an elite roster and program if you do it the right way and are able to attract enough of those players to your campus. I'm going to really enjoy recruiting to Purdue University, because you look at the opportunities that can be created here through education, through connection, through the social aspect, and then playing on the best stage in college football, Purdue's going to be a great place to recruit to. I think our assistant coaches, those 10 guys plus the other support staff that we have in recruiting and operations and strength and conditioning and academic resource center, all those people that played a part administratively pulling this together in short time. I'm very thankful for the job that they did and continue to do, and they were a big part on putting this class together. I look at the balance in how we signed offensive versus defensive guys. A lot of that was in short time looking at trying to address specific needs that we thought on the current roster, and then being very, very aggressive in trying to target guys that we knew something about beforehand recruiting wise on how important that was in this first class of signing together. We'll be really aggressive in the next portal window. We have a number of spots that are still of need, and then also the development of what our team looks like as we get through the 15 practices of spring ball, and how we can develop that group in putting them in a position to go play winning football next season, and how important then after spring practice, then another spring portal window opens up for 10 days, what that looks like to develop and add to the roster to get into summer ball, which will start in early June for us. So it's always, recruiting is every single day, and that won't change for us, but really excited about these 40 young men, and excited that the 35 that are here right now on what they have shown, the progress that they have done so far, and then the work that we've still got left out there for us to put the team in a position to go be their best. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and if there's something else I did not hit on, please bring it up and I'll be happy to talk about it.
Yeah, Barry, what's the question you were asked the most often on the recruiting trail by players?
Yeah, I think number one, I think it's still a relationship-driven business. I believe that, and certainly it is for us. So more than anything, they wanted to know more about me and our staff. Just the questions of who we are, what the program is going to look like, and then when you get a kid on campus, then they can see all those things that you talked about. They can see it through their lens and their scope, and they can visualize themselves here having success. I think, as important as that was, how are we going to play winning ball and get it fixed on what we need to do? And I think that's a very honest and pure question, and one that I believe in our foundation, I believe in our formula, I believe in our coaches, and I think there's a track record there that is pretty easy for me to point to say how we've done it before and how we're going to do it here. So I would say those would be some of the big things, and then you look at how do they fit schematically into what we're going to run offensively and defensively, and does their skill set fit on what we're looking for.
What do you think the strengths are of the 29 portal guys you brought in?
I think there's experience, some varying in degrees on what they've done, but I look at in areas at the receiver position, I think we needed to add a little more length in that room. We were able to do that. I look defensively, and a couple of the linebackers we brought in that we've recruited before and knew before, either through coaching them, that was an area of need that we addressed. And more specific in guys that like the process of playing football. And that seems very, very elementary, but everyone loves the recruiting process. Everyone loves the photo shoot. Everybody likes Saturday afternoon for 3.5 hours on getting to play, but can you find guys that are willing to do what it takes 12 months out of the year? And the process is, man, it's so hard. But I've learned and seen it's also can be, when done right, the most rewarding athletic experience they'll ever have, and this will be no different for them.
Well, a lot of people talk about when you bring a coach in, it's how important it is for him to bring players with him from his former school to sort of help maybe establish that culture.
Yeah.
When new coaches aren't around. Hey, this is how Coach Odom likes it done. Just kind of talk to that, the importance of that and the UNLV guys you did bring with you?
I think, number one, communication, openness, and honesty is so important, and that's with everybody in your building. I think you can fast track that a little bit more in today's world on getting guys that are familiar with how things are ran, what a Monday practice looks like, what the habits are supposed to look like that create winning. And then we brought a number of guys that I coached before. We brought even more than that I knew before from recruiting, or somebody in the building did that were coaching somewhere else. And I think that gives us a platform to expedite the process just a little bit faster. We'll be very clear in our communication and standards and expectations on what every step is supposed to look like, but it's fun in the locker room when you walk through there and you hear guys that you coached before already talking about the next step and talking about what the winning edge looks like on the drills that we're about to take over and do. You know that there is a voice away from the voice, and you know how powerful that is with our student athletes that you're familiar with.
Nathan Barry from Indianapolis Star. Can you take us through the quarterbacks on this list and just the attributes that you saw in each of them and why they're here?
Yeah, I think, any way you slice it or dice it, the quarterback position is the most important in sport, in my belief. And then I think it's more important than the shortstop, than the starting point guard. I mean, the quarterback touches the ball every single snap. The decision-making that goes into effectively orchestrating the offense, the preparation habits that it takes to play successful at that position, the decision-making once the ball is snapped on what they've got to do with it in a very short time, man, all those things are so important. And when you can take care of the ball, distribute it to your playmakers, make really great decisions, then offensively you can flow the way you need to. So there's a little bit of familiarity with all four of the guys that we were signed at the quarterback position. Coach Henson knew one of them really well from recruiting. He was at USC, but knew through recruiting the kid that was at Washington State in Evans Chuba, and had an idea on what his skill set really was. I think all four of the guys have the ability to be dual threat players in our offense. Coach Henshaw at Central Florida coached one of them directly, so knew about him. And then we had a number of guys. I was at Arkansas in the recruiting of that quarterback. I wasn't there when he was on the roster. I was just only there through the recruiting process, and then I left before he stepped on campus. So I knew the family and knew him really well. And then we signed, we had a couple coaches come over from the University of Arkansas that saw firsthand what the kid could do. And then that was validated by how he played against Ole Miss and how he played against Tennessee. And then the high school quarterback that we signed mid-year, I've known since birth. So I could go on and on about what I think about him. Luckily, he looks and acts and runs like his mother, so he's got a chance with at least competing. I didn't give him any of those skills that I had. So we know how important that position is in our offense. And I've been so fortunate in my career to have been around a lot of really good quarterbacks. And when you've got one that plays really well and he commands leadership in the huddle, and not only that, but in practice situations and in the film room and in the locker room, when your quarterback drives the bus, things seem to go, the ball starts to bounce your way. And it'll be a great competition this spring. And there'll be days that guys take a lead or take a step back, and then how important it is to bounce back the next day. And, I've told all of them in the recruiting, you look at the recruiting process in the 26 class, we're off to a great start, but having some conversations with some of those guys, there's a couple people that aren't allowed to have a bad day. The head coach can't have a bad day. The starting quarterback can't have a bad day. There could be a time in practice you throw a perfect ball, and for whatever reason the receiver tips it and it's intercepted. Well, it goes down in the stat book at the end of the day. It goes down as an interception. Nobody cares how it happens. And also, you look at the head coach at the end of the year is going to have a win-loss record, and so is the quarterback. So you've got to be stoic in your approach. You've got to go outwork everybody in the building. And when you do that in that position, and then schematically, we've got to do a great job on presenting them opportunities within their skill set that they could go play free and play fast. And I think that Coach Henson and Coach Henshaw and the entire offensive staff, when you look at quarterback perspective, they've been around and they've coached a lot of great ones. And then when I put the list together of guys that I've had a chance to be around, not necessarily as the head coach, but in the organization, when it starts with Brad Smith at the University of Missouri, and then it goes to Chase Daniel, and it goes to James Franklin, and it goes to Matty Mock, and it goes to Blaine Gabbert, and it goes to Drew Lock, and then on and on and on. Man, when you got good quarterback play, as this place knows, as Purdue knows, when you got good quarterback play, you can win a lot of games.
How much in that process, as you're bringing these specific guys in, what's the balance between we need somebody who can win, help us win right now, and we need to be setting something up for 2 or 3 years from now?
You look at, it's probably the hardest position not only to play, but it's also really difficult to recruit, because you look at, okay, there's only one quarterback usually, that's taking the snaps. So our charge as a staff is we've got to get, and this is not just with the quarterback position, but we've got to get every single player on our roster in position to play winning football. And I don't know how many of this group we can get there right now, but we've got to take age off. We've got to take scholarship walk on. There's no, once they're ours, and right now we've got 112 on our roster. Once we've got those 112, it's our job to get them in position to play winning ball. And I don't want to hear excuses on, well, he's just a freshman. Nobody cares. Okay, it's about getting them ready, teaching them, mentoring them, building them up, motivating them well enough to go play winning ball. So it would be unfair for me to say, hey, this guy we think's going to be the leader. I'm trying to set the practice plans right now that everybody in the program gets exactly the same amount of reps. And we're short a couple positions to be able to really have the practice structure that we need to have, that we'll have in fall camp, but we're close to being able to do that, where there's not anybody standing around, that we've got an opportunity to get everybody reps. And the only way you get good and really good at football is you play football. And yes, there's lifting and running and film study and teaching and all those things, but how are you going to compete when the lights come on? How are you going to go when it's, you line up and it's 2nd and 12 and you got to go make a play, offense and defense? How good can we get our special teams groups? So how important it is for us to structure it that everybody gets equal reps. You're really evaluating on the body of work. There's self-improvement from practice 1 to practice 2 and on down all the way to 15. We ought to be hitting our stride. And then our non-practice days will be one of the most important things we do in our program, as we lift and we meet, and we're going to get on the field for a little more drill instruction in the time that you have. And so there is a sprint with no finish line. And our guys are starting to feel that, they understand it, and that's certainly a long answer to a simple quarterback question, but we're trying to get them all ready to go play and be ready that first game in August.
The process of bringing the guys with you from UNLV, players for the played at UNLV, how discerning were you about who you were bringing? Like, what was the process of figuring out which players should come with you? How did you make those determinations? Is it just talent? How much was culture a part of that?
That's a very delicate, it's a great question, and I wanted them all. There's so many moving parts of what that looks like. Roster spots available. There's a number of guys that loved their situation they were in there and didn't want to leave. There's some that wanted, as they got into the portal, wanted to come here. We didn't have the roster spot for them at the time. Those are hard too. And then some that we wanted and ended up, they decided because of geographic location or maybe roster depth chart, that they decided to go somewhere else. Every player that I've ever coached, I want them to have great success. and not only as a student, I want them to graduate with a meaningful degree, have great connections, be successful, and have a chance to play in the NFL, be their best version of themselves, be productive members of society. And when those things are cut short, man, I feel like that I've failed some of them, and I hate that. Relationships mean something to me. I'm so thankful for the core group that ended up coming here, and a lot of it had to do with the connectiveness that I had to them, the roster spots available that we had, what I thought they could do at this level of ball, and were we able to get them here. So there's a number of things, all due respect to their program as well. That's hard as well, because the work that they put in to get that thing turned around, and then you're labeled as the reason as they left. That's hard as well. So not to tie emotion into it, but it was tough, and it's never, you can't learn, you try, but it never works. You're not going to make everybody happy, and you've got to be able to live with that, and you've got to be able to explain to them the reasons why, good and bad.
A group you guys hit pretty hard in the portal was defensive backs. Can you just talk about what you saw out of those guys out of the portal?
Yeah, I think some experience that showed up, some position flexibility that is important. There's some guys that can play corner and safety, I believe. I don't know that we have any that can play safety as their primary position, and then corner. That's a much more difficult thing to ask them to do. But from being able to play the nickel or overhang position to the field for us, schematically, as we get into second long or third downs, how can we utilize the skill set of a number of defensive backs, at the linebacker position, or maybe into the boundary, and the different things that Coach Shear and his staff have started to put together. We're always, you can say you're an odd front or even front, or you're going to line up in whatever schematic, but if your players can't do it, then it really doesn't matter. So you got to adjust to the skill set of the players that you have, and I think more than anything we looked at, can they win in this league? How many positions can they play? Can you play zone? Can you play man? Can you do a combination of both? Do they have the football IQ that we feel like we can teach them to play the match zone concepts on how we want to? Are they tough? Are they dependable? As a DB, say you play 70 snaps in a game, and 67 of them are great plays, and 3 of them you give up a big play which results in a touchdown, then that's an awful day, right? So there's so many things that go into play defensive back. Years ago, guys, I was an offensive coach, and still am. I only call touchdowns now, okay? Other than that, I do other things. But I had much like yourself, I had a full head of hair, okay? Life was good. It didn't work out, just pumped the ball. Okay, and then I switched over to defense and started coaching the defensive back, and oh man, you give up a play, that happens. So it is a hard position to play, and then you look at what we ask our DBs to do. You're going to be tacklers, you got to fit in the box, you got to blitz, you got to cover man and zone. There's times we're going to go cover zero, so it's me versus you, and you hope the rush gets there because there's a lot of opportunity for them to complete a ball maybe. So we got a long ways to go at every single position, and I do see the development in that group specifically on the things we thought we saw through recruiting to now getting closer to getting started with spring practice, and the physical development in the weight room, and then soon enough we'll be getting into the the classroom side of teaching the defense or the offense or the kicking game, and hopefully our guys are able to retain that information, and if they can't, then we got to be better teachers. So it's a fun process.
I know you referenced them at the top, just the support staff as far as recruiting goes. What was that process like of getting all those positions filled, and how important is it for all of you guys to be on the same page?
Yeah, I will say the people that are within the university, okay, in every level, from donor to fan to student, whatever their role is, they should be proud of Purdue University and our administration, because they've done absolutely everything that our football program and team has needed to build it for success. And in turn, the responsibility that I feel and have every day to get this program back to where Purdue should be is very, very deep. And I could not do it as the head coach without the support that we've received administratively. And then you look at, under that umbrella, what it is, the makeup of the recruiting department. You're hiring a new staff. You get guys out, in a number of different roles. But the 10 assistants, everybody's got a role in the building. But it's so important, the alignment that it takes in that building. Everybody in the organization, you got to pour your soul into it, because we got a lot of people to catch. We need to do it right now, and we've all got to be on board, all in. And as soon as that happens, then things you start knocking down walls, and you find ways to win games and close games, and it's process driven, and we're right on track where we need to be. I'm thankful for all the different people and moving parts. The community was great as well, on taking families to official visits and dinners, and you can feel the passion, you can feel the energy. A couple nights ago, when Purdue beat the opponent in red, okay, Friday night, 8 o'clock tip, we walk over a group of 10 of what we thought were really high-level recruits. From that atmosphere, from the time we walked to our building into the arena, is unmatched. You could feel it in the air. You could feel it with the passion of the fans. Our recruits could, their families could. They could see themselves. They want that to be part of their experience. Since that night, we've had some really good success with the guys that were here. And that's what it takes. It takes everything. It takes every single body to get it done, and we know how important that is.
Coach, last year's team was very young. They had a lot of freshmen and sophomores getting a lot of action, especially as the season went on with injuries and whatnot. Do you envision a similar approach this year, or more veterans getting action?
Well, I think every single person in the organization will earn exactly what they deserve. And again, we take age off of it. I mean, I look at specifically the last 2 years that I've been a head coach, the amount of young guys that played, it does not matter. We're going to play who is ready to go play winning ball. So, as soon as I learned a long time ago when I was a player, my freshman year, I played linebacker, and I didn't start the first 6 games of my career. I played a lot, but I didn't start. And then all of a sudden, going into week 7, the coach told me, "Hey, you're going to start this week." And I was no different week 7 than I was week 6. What was different was the space between my ears. I didn't see myself as the starter. I thought I was supposed to wait my time. Okay, that's completely wrong. I put a self-limitation on who I was as a player. And then I went game 7, I started every other game of my career. Okay, so I look back at the now with that experience. I don't want guys to, physically we're recruiting guys to come in here and go play winning football right now. The only restraint that will be put on them would be self-limitations, and that's my job to make sure I put them and our coaches in position to provide them everything they need to be successful, build them up, motivate them, teach them, coach them, love them, and get them in position to go play winning ball. And then celebrate their successes, and the things that we don't do well, let's correct it, let's fix it, where we don't make the same mistake twice. So it would be unfair for me to say, hey, this many seniors are going to play as opposed to freshmen, because that won't be our approach on how we move the program forward. I like the question. I mean, it's well thought out. It's just, if we're judging guys on, hey, he's not ready to play because he's a freshman, then we haven't done a very good job coaching him. And So that's my job as a head coach, and as the assistants go, doesn't matter scholarship, walk on, where you're from, let's get them ready to go play.
And then as you're trying to round out the rest of the roster, what are you looking for in the next portal window?
Yeah, it'll be difficult to say exactly what that looks like today. We're not at 85 scholarships at this point. Then you throw in a number of different factors also with that. As aggressive as we're going to be on filling the roster to the roster limit of 105 next year, which everybody will be working under those same numbers. Excited to see what spring ball looks like, the development of the roster on where it transpires from here. And then there'll be needs that we, have either, in backup roles, or the health of the team throughout spring, what that looks like. So it would not be fair for me to say, hey, we need to go get X amount of this position, because I just don't know right now without seeing us go line up and go through spring ball.
Got time for a couple more questions, Sam.
Real quick, probably a brief one here. You mentioned being shorthanded at some positions going into spring ball. What positions are you limited at?
Well, let's look at if we truly want and have the ability to two-spot a practice. So in our practice structure, there's 2 practices going on at one time. We got, basically 4 groups over here and 4 groups over here working on separate fields. We're a couple of bodies short on the offensive line to be able to pull that off. We're 1 short on the defensive backfield if we go to a nickel or dime personnel package to be able to pull that off as we want. So we're looking and searching. I don't know how much you weigh. You've got
I don't either, so.
you got a COVID year left, maybe we throw you out at left guard, and that might be able to get us through it. So, I want so badly our team to be able to experience going through what that practice structure looks like in the spring, because we're certainly going to do it in the fall. And if we get again, an evaluation tool and being able to see that during the spring, our players and our team will move forward faster, and we'll be able to get a great evaluation on everybody on the roster. So those 2 specifically, O-line and a couple DB spots, if we could get those filled here in the next couple of weeks with a couple walk-ons then that are already in school here. They're going to get plenty of reps, and then we can practice the way that we really want to.
I wanted to ask specifically about a couple of guys, one being Nunnally and then the other being Vaccaro, who have accomplished a lot at the college level already, won several accolades, but was the sell job maybe come and play in the best conference and try to do it at a higher level? And clearly they've done a lot, but still feel like they have something to prove.
Yeah, I think you look at, I wouldn't want to answer for them exactly, but I think look at opportunity to play in this conference is, it's a dream of everybody to play in the best. So, and those 2 guys have played a lot of meaningful snaps. They've got good experience. We're counting on them becoming really good players for us. And I think, more than anything, the relationship with coaches that knew them before and had a chance to recruit them, and then also the opportunity to come in, as you mentioned, on this stage and try to be really good against the best.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Thanks, guys.